just taking some toner on a cotton pad and cleaning her face. This is just going to make sure she doesn't have any oil or leftover makeup or anything before we start. And then I'm going to take some moisturiser on a duo fibre brush and just work that in to prep the skin before we put all of that makeup on top of it. For all my clients, I will start with brows. I do this on myself as well. It just allows me to clean them up without disturbing any face makeup or eye makeup. And to do this, I use the Morphe Gel Cream, and I have 3 different shades. And I'll take the lightest shade in the front of the brow and then work my way up to the darkest one towards the tail. And I just use an angled liner brush to do this, and I go back and forth with a spoolie to make sure the product is evenly dispersed and all of the hairs are laying nice and neat. Then I'm going to prep the lid for eyeshadow and also clean up underneath the brows. You can use any normal concealer to do this, or a MAC paint pot or something like those types of eye bases, but I am using the P. Louise eye base, which is like a really thick concealer. Some people have compared it to the MAC Select Cover Up Concealer. I don't know if they sell that anymore, but a few people really like that as well. This is a really great way to make your makeup look more put together. Even if you're not doing eyeshadow, if you've just done your brows and your face makeup, run a little bit of concealer underneath them and it'll make everything look so much more clean and defined. I'm just using a Sigma flat concealer brush, and I like to use one of these because it allows me to be really detailed underneath the brow, but I can also just get the product on there as well, like I'm doing here all over the lid. And then what I'll do is I will take a fluffy concealer brush and I'll just blend that into the eye to make sure there's no streaks or anything. You can use your fingers or even a beauty sponge to do this. Just make sure it's smooth before you put eyeshadow on. And I like to blend that into the inner corner of her eye, almost on her nose, to make sure that it blends with the foundation later, and also a little bit past the outer corner of her eye as well. That way we don't have any harsh lines. So I'm just going to add her brow highlight first with a teeny tiny eyeshadow brush. And now we'll go in with our first shade, just patting that on first, and then once the product is on there, I'll go in small circular motions to blend that colour out. And I'm going to take it from the outer corner of the eye all the way to the inner corner. It's really important, especially for looks like this, which is a half cut crease, to take the eyeshadow all the way to the inner corner so there's contrast between the lid shade and the transition shades. And to do this look, I am using the Dose of Colours Sassy Siennas palette, and this is the second corally colour from that palette. I think I also use a little bit of the Anastasia Beverly Hills Soft Glam palette, but that comes in later. So this is the brightest colour, and then we're going to get a little bit darker as we go on. It's important to remember when you're transitioning colours that the darker colour you have, the smaller brush you need to use, and the closer to the lash line you need to keep it. So as this is the lightest and brightest shade we're using, I'm blending this almost all the way up to her brow to make sure that everything is nice and blended out later on. So now we're taking a darker colour on a slightly denser, smaller brush, and again starting on the outer corner and slowly working into the inner corner, but I'm not going to take it up as high as the first shade, just making sure we're getting some definition in that crease all the way across the eye. And this is the third shade from the Sassy Siennas palette, and it's just a really nice warm brown. Just going in with that first brush, no additional product, just blending those two colours together, making sure everything's nice and smooth. And again, smaller crease brush, darker colour, lower to the lash line. This one has really flexible bristles, so I can really push the bristles down flat and push them into the crease to make sure I can keep that colour nice and low. And then I can pull pressure back if I want the bristles to splay and blend with that second colour. If you want more pressure and more pigment from your eyeshadow, hold the brush closer to the bristles. And if you want a lighter wash of colour and lighter pressure, hold the brush further back. So like with this one, I'm holding the brush almost near the ferrule to make sure that I'm getting a nice pigmented effect from that eyeshadow. And then when I blend it out later, you'll see that I'm holding it a little bit further back along the handle of the brush. And again, this is the darkest colour, so I'm taking it on the smallest brush. This is just a small pointed bullet brush, and keeping that mainly in the outer corner, but I will take it through to the inner corner as well, but I'll keep it the lowest out of all the shades. You won't really see it, but it will create a really nice contrast to the lid shade. I've also blended it a little bit on her lid, so it gives us something to work with when we do use the lid shade, because we want those two to blend together as well. So there I'm holding the brush just up near the middle of the handle to make sure that I'm still getting a little bit of colour from it, but it's not as harsh as the outer corner. Now that looks really scary there, but next what I'm going to do is I'm taking a clean brush. This has no product on it at all. It's a really big fluffy crease brush, and I'm just blending all of that outer corner. And then I'm taking the third brush. This has a little bit of product on it. I go between the warm brown and the first shade we use, the corally colour, and just making sure everything's really nice and diffused towards the outer corner of the eye. And now we're going to cut the lid, and I'm using the same flat concealer brush we used with the same eye base, and I'm just pressing that along her eyelid where it meets her socket. And you'll notice, like I said before, we won't really see those really dark browns, but it creates a nice contrast to the line to make it look really crisp. And you'll see I've got my thumb from my other hand resting on her eyebrow, and I can lift her eye up a little bit if I need to get into the crease a little bit more. That's why I do brows first as well. It gives the product a chance to set so it doesn't smudge if I do decide to pull her eye. And now what I'm doing is just blending that outer corner colour with that eye base so that we get a nice ombre effect with the eyeshadow. And you can see I kind of stuffed up the line there with my big fat finger. So I'm just taking the small bullet brush with a little bit of extra product on it, that same really dark brown, to redefine the line. And then taking that third brush with one of the lighter browns on it to fade the colour even more. If you don't do this, there's not going to be much of a transition between the lid shade and the outer corner, and it's just going to look really stark on the eyelid. I find that this looks a lot softer and prettier. And now we're taking a shade from the Anastasia Beverly Hills Soft Glam palette, and this is, I think it's called Rosy. I'm just taking a flat shader brush to pack that onto that area where we just put that eye base, and my big fat head is in front of the camera. Sorry guys. Now I'm using a fluffy flat brush to pack on one of the Australis shimmer pots. This is just a peachy champagne-y shade which goes really nicely with the lid shade. And now I'm just going to clean all of that fallout off. If I'd done her face first, I wouldn't be able to clean all of that off like I am now. I would have had to put powder under her eye to be able to protect from that fallout, which I don't really like doing. I think it's really drying on the skin. So I do eyes first for that reason. So now moving on to eyeliner, I'm just taking the Inglot AMC gel liner in the number 77 and just running that along her lash line, and then we'll wing it up at the outer corner, but we won't do a wing. I'm going to blend it out with that small bullet brush and blend it into the outer corner so it looks like a winged effect, but we don't have that harsh line. Now I'm just doing some mascara. With all my clients, I will ask them to close their eyes and I will just lift their eye a little bit with my thumb and roll the disposable wand under their lashes. This is really comfortable for them, and I make sure that I don't feel like I'm going to poke them in the eye. I can just get the product on there. And now we're going to add some lashes. These are the Tati lashes in the style TL6. They wing out at the end, so they really add to that cat eye effect that we were going for with the eyeliner. And then I'm just going over the lash band once the glue's dried with some more eyeliner so that everything's really nice and black. And now I'm just adding primer. This is the Fenty No Filter primer. And then I'm going in with the Becca Shimmering Skin Perfector, and I think that's in the shade Opal. But the foundation I'm going to use dries down pretty matte, so using this underneath it helps it to stay more liquidy for a little bit longer, and it gives me a little bit more playtime with it. So now I am doing concealer first. I watched a video from someone who had been to Makeup by Mario's masterclass, and he does Kim Kardashian's makeup, which always looks beautiful, so I thought I would try this, which he had put in his masterclass and said it makes everything look more full coverage and more airbrushed. I don't really think it makes a huge difference, but it works either way, so whatever method I choose, I guess it doesn't really matter. So I just concealed the tops of the brows and added concealer to the center of her face, and am now blending that out with a Morphe contour sponge. Sorry, highlight and contour sponge. These are really good. They're only $11 and they are kind of halfway between a Beauty Blender and a Real Technique sponge. They're a bit softer than the Real Technique sponge, but they're not as soft as a Beauty Blender, but they get the job done, and I think they're really nice. And now I'm just adding the foundation. This is the Melissa Sassine Cosmetics Flawless Finish Foundation in the shade Y2. With all, no, that doesn't have any Y4 in it, that's just Y2. And I'm just getting that on there with that duo fiber brush first, and then I'll go in with the sponge and really start to blend it out. I'm taking it down the center of her neck. I don't know if you can see, but like I said before, she got a little bit sunburnt, but the center of her neck didn't really get any sun, so it's quite pale compared to the rest of her, so I just took it all the way down to make sure that everything was all one color. And like I said before, this foundation dries quite matte and it dries quite quickly, so you have to be really fast when you're working with it. But putting that shimmering skin perfector, which is like a liquid, or not a liquid, it's more of a cream highlight. It's kind of like a luminous moisturizer almost. It just doesn't let the foundation dry so quickly, so I have a little bit more time to work with it once I put it on the face. And now I am just taking some Kryolan Ultra Cream Foundation, and I think this is in the shade NB4. This shade is really great for contouring or bronzing or warming up the face, or whatever it is you want to call it, because it just blends out so nicely and it works well with a lot of different products. And it comes in so many different shades, so there's something for everyone. And now I am just using the Cover FX Custom Cover Drops, I think these are called, in the shade Sunlight on the top of her cheekbone. That's just a liquid highlight, and I blended that in with the sponge, and now I'm just adding powder to her face. Using a sponge will make your powder melt into the product so much better than a brush ever will, especially when you're doing more full coverage makeup. It just presses everything together and makes sure it won't move. This is a really great way to make your makeup last a lot longer as well. And now I'm just adding some Benefit Hoola bronzer. So I added the cream products underneath, and now I'm just using the powder to reinforce that colour. I find if I only use powder, then it starts to look really muddy because I have to use more product to get the build up of colour that I want. So by putting a cream under and just doing a light layer of the powder, I find it looks a lot more natural on the skin and not like a big build up of powder, and it looks less cakey in my opinion. And I'm just adding some blush. This is the Milani Cosmetics Luminoso blush. This is like a cult favourite. Everybody loves this. I've never heard anyone not like this. And it goes really, really well with the eye look as well. It's such a peachy, luminous shade. It's so nice. Using the same bronzer brush as well, really make sure that those two blend together and they don't look separate or harsh on your cheeks. And I am using the Morphe Spark highlighter just on the high points of her face, on her cheekbones, her nose, her chin, a little bit on her cupid's bow as well. I think I'm using the MAC Vanilla pigment here with a little bit of the Cover FX Aurora glitter drops mixed in. And I'm adding some white eyeliner to the waterline just to open it up a little bit because it is quite intense with those big fluffy lashes and quite thick eyeliner on the top. And then I'm just adding the same shades that we used on the top of the lid to the bottom lash line to smoke that out and make it look nice and cohesive. And now I'm just using MAC Fix Plus to make sure all of that powder melts into the skin. And then I'll do bottom lash mascara. If I did Fix Plus after this, there's a good chance that it would transfer. Emily has quite long bottom lashes, and I didn't want to ruin all of that work under our eye that we just did, so that's why I did the spray before and let it dry a little bit. And now for lips, I am taking Jeffree Star's Mannequin. So this is the finished makeup. I hope my talk through made some kind of sense, and if you want to see more talk throughs like this, more models, more client looks, let me know.